I'm trucking for a free world.
So the People's Convoy in the USA is picking up steam. This is Oklahoma. I think it got off to a slower start. At least there's not as much, I don't know if it's intentional, but there's not as much coverage, or it seems the same energy. And I think though, as it's going, it's picking up more steam. I do know that the organizers are saying they are not doing what the truckers here did. They are not planning to go into the city and set up camp defiantly, which is what our truckers did from the, they planned from the beginning to go to Ottawa and basically stay there as long as they possibly could. In this case, the US version, they are not planning to actually enter the city. At least that's their official stance.
There's no emergency anymore. The emergency's over with. And so ending the emergency declaration, the state of emergency, ending the mandates, and let's get back to normal. It's time. It's time that we go back to work. It's time that we go back to our normal lives. We are currently protesting the states of emergency that have been put out there, and hoping to end all mandates, mask and vaccine, both for all federal employees, healthcare workers, and Department of Defense military personnel.
We're rolling for freedom, all the way to DC.
What does that mean? What's at stake?
Our country, everything that we've ever known, the future for our kids. I'd like them to have a United States that I had growing up.
We'll see what happens. I understand the National Guard in Washington, D.C. is not taking any chances, and they're going to have a lot of extra law enforcement there for sure. That being said, I also wonder if some people in the United States are feeling a little more complicit, or they feel that they're not at the same risk level as Canada or any other country from overreaching governments. And I think that maybe that's part of the reason. I don't know. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. Although there's a lot of people in the United States that are definitely fighting just as hard, if not harder, than we are in Canada. But I'm just thinking, like, generally, across the population, I wonder what the percentage is out here that supports versus thinks it's silly or doesn't even know what's happening. And I'm sure there is a bit of a media blackout on this sort of thing as well. But, to think that it can't happen in the United States is foolhardy, first of all. President Biden is literally doing the exact same thing that Justin Trudeau is doing, and he feels the same way. That they're both the same. I've said that before. It's true. They are trying to label people that stand up for their fundamental freedoms, their right to choose, as the T word.
DHS warns of, and I quote, the proliferation of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. The bulletin specifically identifies, and I quote, widespread online proliferation of false or misleading narratives regarding unsubstantiated widespread election fraud and COVID-19 as key factors contributing to the current heightened threat environment. So let's decode this. They're not just talking about acts of violence committed to achieve a political or an ideological goal. They are talking about dissent. And what does DHS suggest someone do if they find themselves menaced in the court of public opinion? They want you to report the offender to law enforcement. Madam President, I've come to the floor time and again to detail just how frightened the American people are of Joe Biden's radical agenda. But this bulletin is the best evidence I've seen to date of just how frightened Joe Biden is of the American people. They must be scared to death over there in that White House. How dare anybody question them? How dare anybody call them into question for the agenda that they have? I'd even go so far as to suggest that this betrays his administration's desire to police the speech, thoughts, and opinions of American citizens and to deputize the public to help keep dissenters in line. The Biden administration is as close as they ever have been to declaring that expressing public disagreement with their agenda is akin to an act of domestic terrorism.
So you see, if you're in the United States, your government thinks that you are a terrorist, just like the federal Liberal government in Canada. And if you wave your country's flag and stand for freedom, you're now a Nazi. Just like here in Canada.
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler? How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler?
Nazi! Nazi! Nazi!
Freeze the bank account of everyone who protests against me. Good luck paying your rent or buying food.
What does Trump think about all this?
They want to do the same thing to America that Trudeau has been doing to Canada, and much, much worse. The tyranny we have witnessed in Canada in recent weeks should shock and dismay people all over the world. In an advanced Western democracy, the peaceful movement of patriotic truckers, workers, and families protesting for their most basic rights and liberties has been violently put down.
Love him or hate him, he nailed it. And here is Aaron Gunn, here in BC. He's actually going to be running for premier of this province.
Illegal blockades, hypocrisy, and the Trudeau government's Emergencies Act. If you've been watching the media for the past few weeks, you'd be forgiven for thinking Canada had entered some sort of unprecedented state of lawlessness, where a new political movement had adopted menacing and sinister political tactics to bring a government and a country to its knees. But if you believe that, you'd also have to be living in an alternate reality, because the idea of erecting blockades didn't exactly just fall out of the sky. In fact, it was just 2 years ago where illegal blockades paralyzed the entire country, blocking highways, ports, and most critically, Canada's rail lines, all over a natural gas pipeline in northern BC. And these blockades weren't exactly non-violent lovin's. In one instance, they actively attempted to derail a train, what many would call domestic terrorism. And what was Trudeau's response at the time? Well, he didn't call them racists, he didn't call them Nazis, and he certainly didn't invoke the Emergencies Act. In fact, he directly negotiated with those at the center of the activist campaign, rewarding them for their actions while throwing all of the elected First Nation chiefs who supported the project under the bus.
Boom! I have a new shirt to kind of pay tribute to the US doing the same thing that we were doing. This is great. So I put this up on my store a couple days ago, and I put a community post on YouTube, and people have been buying them like crazy. So the link is below if you want one of these. Keep in mind, those of you that are asking about shipping times on some of the other ones, these are printed and shipped by Teespring, which is one of YouTube's official merchandise partners. And they aren't as... People are so used to this Amazon 2-3 day delivery stuff that they're not used to regular shipping times. So it's actually a few weeks once you order, which is normal for these printing companies. So when you go to the checkout page, it tells you what date it's going to be printed and shipping dates as well. So just keep an eye on that at the bottom of the page when you're at the checkout, and then you'll know when you're going to get the stuff. Now, the prices are set, they have a default price set, the recommended price by the vendor. And I went in and edited for this particular design. I went in and dropped the price by a couple dollars on the items. So best I can do, but if you guys want one, the link is in the description below. Keep on trucking in the free world.